Welcome back, you mapper and or modder you, to yet another tutorial video for Tiberian Sun. Today's tutorial is going to be a bit of a doozy. We are going over how to create your own custom campaign mission in Tiberian Sun. We're going to go over the easy stuff first, which will be me repeating most of the things I have said in previous tutorials, and at the end of the video I will show you how to make your missions transition to the next map instead of kicking the player back to the menu first. Now there is a lot to go over, so let's get started. And the first thing we need to get started is, of course, a map that the mission will take place on. So we're going to put our map in the missions folder of our vanilla Tiberian Sun client install that you should hopefully already have. You can find it online pretty easy. So let's go ahead and click Create New Map. And with the map open, we're going to make a pretty simple one. I'm going to put the player's base in one corner and the enemy base in another, and then we'll go over it after I'm back. All right, I lied. We're actually going to start with houses. We'll go into more detail on what they do later, but for now, we're just going to click on the scripting button at the top of the screen, then click on houses, which brings up this menu, and we're going to press the Add Standard Houses button and click Single Player. This is a vanilla Tiberian Sun client install, so we've only got the 4 vanilla houses, which is going to make our life a lot easier. You can define which houses appear in single player inside of World Altering Editor in case you're working on your own mod or something, but for this tutorial, of course, we're just doing vanilla. We're going to say that the house of the human player is GDI, and we also want to make sure that this player control checkbox is checked, because of course that means the player is allowed to command and conquer the units belonging to the house called GDI. All right, I'm going to make these bases with owners applied, and then I will be back. All right, and I am back. Unfortunately, I recorded this video, and then after I finished recording, realized that I didn't actually turn my microphone on, so you're not going to get to see me do some of the things, but I'm going to try and go over them the best I can. To start off with houses, when I made the bases, I made sure to set owner to one of the houses that we had set up from earlier while placing things down, because if you don't, by default, the owner will be neutral. And if you build the whole base, you'll then have to come through afterwards and change the house over. So choose the house correctly when you are first setting up the bases. And let's see here, nod. All right, so I set this up as GDI versus quote unquote nod, but I gave nod GDI buildings just to show that it doesn't matter what side the house is or what name it is, you can set it to whatever side you want. So the reason that is possible is because we changed the side and acts like to GDI. Side, of course, controls what things can be produced. So when you spawn with an MCV, obviously your side is going to be GDI, blah blah blah. And acts like, to the best of my knowledge, acts like controls what AI triggers will actually fire if you enable global triggers. The IQ does different things. IQ 0 is just brain dead and does nothing. IQ 1, I'm pretty sure, enables automatic building repair for buildings that have the AI repairable flag set to yes. I don't know what the differences in 2 and 3 are, but I do know that the difference between IQ 4 and 5 is that IQ 5 automatically enables production without the need of any triggers for it, and trigger or IQ of 4 requires production to be enabled via a trigger. And one of the differences that I went over, I have to remember what I did go over and what I haven't yet. So the allies, that's right. In skirmish, you'll notice that the enemies will always come and hunch you out and ignore civilian structures, but in single player, if the houses are not allied, these guys here in range of these buildings will shoot and destroy them. So if you ever start a mission and hear some random gunshots in the shroud, it is likely because of a ally misalignment. So make sure if you have decorative pieces on your map that you ally your AI houses with those houses. Something else I went over was how I will interchangeably use the word owner and house. that is because they are basically the same thing. They really are interchangeable. A house is an owner of objects, and you can define certain things within a house, such as the side of units it's going to use and what AI triggers are going to apply to it. That should be all for houses. I also tossed down these waypoints because at the beginning of the game, I want the base to be visible because player structures only have a certain amount of vision, and I don't want a bunch of ugly black spots in the base. So I set up a trigger here with elapsed time of 0, aka mission start, and it's just going to reveal around a bunch of those waypoints. And another big difference between skirmish and single player is you have to define when a player will lose or win. So in order to lose, I set up a pretty simple trigger of if every object that is owned by GDI is destroyed, the player will lose. Because obviously, if they have nothing left to command, then there's no point in playing, so they lose. And the win trigger is a little bit different. It says no factories left when there are no factories left for the house specified in the trigger. And the difference is the house doesn't get specified in the parameter, but rather as the owner of the trigger. So you got to watch out for that. For certain events, you need to specify the house as the owner of the trigger rather than in the value itself. And that action that gets triggered by that event is a winner, and the winner is GDI, the player. Okay, that's what it was. So in this base, you'll notice there is no MCV. That's because I wanted to have a little bit of fun and have a reinforcement come in at the beginning of the mission and drop off the player's MCV. So a lot of that is going over things that I've already gone over in my previous videos, which is task force, team type, and script. So of course the task force is telling the game what units to spawn, the script is telling those units what to do, and the team type links them together so they actually know which units are doing what. So to go briefly over that, we added a new task force, named it whatever we wanted. In this case, I'm shoving an MCV inside of a dropship. And then I made a script, and I placed down a couple of waypoints with the waypoint button up here. And I said, move to waypoint 11, unload, keep the transports, but lose any units that come out of it. And then when you're done with that, move to waypoint 6 and delete yourself. And then we took those two things, the task force and the script, and shoved them into a team type. It is important that you specify the house for your team type, as discussed in previous videos. Otherwise, it'll just not spawn, or you're not going to be able to control it. And in this case, it is important that we specify a waypoint. I specified waypoint 10 because that is the waypoint I want it to spawn at, using action 7 instead of action 80. Let's go over that real fast. The opening MCV trigger is another easy one I set up. I said after the elapsed time of allegedly 20 seconds at 15 FPS, do 7 reinforcement the opening dropship. And that will come from off map from waypoint 10, which is different than action 80 reinforcement at waypoint, which specifically requires you to specify a waypoint in a second parameter. And like the description says, it will simply appear at that waypoint that you specify, which in most use cases is a lot more reliable than action 7. I just much prefer the way action 7 looks than units spawning out of thin air, because it'll actually fly in from off map and look cool. And that is about it for the mapping side of things. I expect that you mappers will be able to make something much prettier than whatever this is here. But let's get into one of the more nitty-gritty things, which is how to actually find and play your map in-game. So if you launched up the vanilla Tiberian Sun client that you have installed, you will notice that, ignore that, there is no mission there. And we actually have to define it in a completely separate file called Battle.ini, which is located in your ini subfolder here. And it's just Battle.ini. And when you first open it, it might look a little complicated, but really it is just a list and then telling that list what it is. So unfortunately, like I said, I already recorded this and did all of it, but by default, when you first download this, you're going to have an entry that's just called empty1, or something like that. I don't actually remember what it was, but all we did is delete the semicolon, and then we did Control F to find, oh yeah, empty 1, which isn't there anymore, but it is down here towards the bottom, and we replaced there we go. We replaced empty 1 with the name of our map file. So I saved my map as campaign tutorial, and I simply copied that text, pasted it in this list up here, and then inside of the brackets at the bottom, pasted it again. It needs to match. That is the important part. And the description is what shows up on the left side of the campaign screen. The long description is what shows up on the right side. I am unaware of any limitations as far as the characters goes, so write a novel in there if you want to. I'm not sure if it'll stop you. The important bit as well to describe in here is scenario. It is a file path directory into where your map file is saved. In our case, if you followed what I said earlier, you put it into missions, and then simply put the name of your map file here with the .map extension, and it should just work just like that. And side specifies what quote-unquote sidebar you will see, so you'll know when you play as GDI, you've got the nice gold theme, but when you play as Nod, you've got red. So this is an indexed list, which I believe is based off of rules, so if you look up sides, yeah, there we go. So 0 is GDI, 1 is Nod, 2 is neutral, 3 is special. Pretty sure you can't make the player play as these houses, so don't do that, otherwise it'll probably crash, or go experiment and have fun. The side name, not sure what this defines, but we're just going to match that with side. And don't forget to save your file, and then when you next launch up your Tiberian Sun, your mission will be here. Go ahead and launch it to make sure it works. If it didn't, hopefully I covered any possible mistakes that might have been there. Oh yeah, let's watch that MCV arrive. Boom, comes in from off map, removes a shroud that I missed. There's the MCV, and there it goes. It leaves the map just like that. If we wanted to win, we simply go kill the enemy, who shouldn't produce any units because I didn't define it. But yeah, if we kill all these factories, well, yeah, let's put that over there. Kill all these factories, then we should win. Boom, mission accomplished, just like that, razzle dazzle. Okay, now let's move on to a bit more of an advanced discussion, which is how to get your missions to transfer from one map to the next without kicking me back to the menu like this one here is. And I'll be right back once I have those files open. Alright, and to start things off, just make sure skip map select is on, unless for whatever reason you really want to use the vanilla map selection layout, but I definitely don't recommend that. So the files you're going to want to open are the map itself. So in this case, campaign tutorial.map, we open that with a text editor, and the other file is an ini file. It's called Mapsel.ini, which is of course found within the ini folder, and there is Mapsel.ini. Don't bother with Mapsel.ini because that's just the Firestorm stuff, but you can ignore that. Now, there is unfortunately a downside in that I don't know how to make a completely new mission progression, but I do know that we can replace existing ones. So for GDI progression stages in this example, I've taken 1 and changed it from GDI 01 to campaign tutorial, aka the name of my map file. But right here, you can actually call it whatever you want. I'm just keeping it consistent for the sake of consistency. And the next thing you want to do is go find the GDI 01 entry. I've already gone and found it and replaced GDI 01 with a duplicate entry. I've actually just copied it and pasted it down here, changed GDI 01 for campaign tutorial in order to match the list up there, and of course changing the scenario to match tutorial.map. And I've left everything in here the same just because we know it works. The important bit is down here at the bottom where it says 2 equals GDI02. And this is where, when you are making your own campaigns, you will replace it with your own missions. So we'd say campaign tutorial 2, and then you can take this and say campaign tutorial 2, so on and so forth. But of course, for the tutorial here, I haven't done that. I'm just specifically using what's already there, just for the sake of brevity. And I'll show you this in action. I've gone ahead and added a trigger that just makes the test mission complete itself instantly. So you can see we go straight from the mission accomplished screen into our score screen, which I swear takes a long time. At least when you're trying to record. Boom. After we hit enter, instead of going to the main menu, you'll notice another briefing. That is because it is GDI02, where we scout for cheap anti-air with millions of dollars of aircraft. Rest in peace. But as you can see, that is how you can make a string of missions connecting to each other. You go to map selection, or Mapsel.ini, swap out these entries for your own. I mean, you could even keep the names as they are and just swap out the scenario for your map files, and you're good to go. And that is all I have for you guys today. Once again, as always, if you would like to see more tutorials, give me a comment down below. This video was inspired by this comment that editing me will 100% place on screen because it was clear and concise and said exactly what it would want. And it allowed me to perfectly think of a video to make because the idea is already there on paper. So put them in the comments, like, subscribe, share this video, and peace out, skis. For now, skis. Later. Ah ha ha, I did it again. I pranked you. I forgot to mention that when you open campaign tutorial.map, or your map file, you have to specify NextScenario and then put the file path directory with the map name on there. And another thing that is worth mentioning is how you can make a briefing actually play. So you can, if you want to see how they format it in a vanilla mission, just open up any mission that exists and you put within brackets briefing, and then you make everybody's favorite a numbered list. So you say 1 equals tutorial mission. And if you want to put line breaks, you use the @ symbol. If you want a bigger one, you put 2 @ symbols. 2 equals line 2. @ 3 equals, and 3, so on and so forth, so that when you next open your mission, it will actually have a briefing on it instead of just being blank, because you don't want to send your players in blind. Look at that, look at all those line breaks. It's beautiful. Anyway, that is truly all I have for you. Peace out, skis for now, skis. Later.